Good morning and welcome to another edition of COVID Calls. Today we have two very special guests. We have the Archbishop Scicluna and we have former President Louise Coleiro Preca. We only have a few minutes with the Archbishop because he's in between lectures, so we're going to get started right away. Hold on.
Hello, Chris.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can actually.
So first of all, thank you very much for making time for us. I know you're in between lectures.
I am. I have lectures to the Gregorian. It's a new experience for me because I usually go to Rome and give this course to students of the Gregorian University, but we had to do it online. So it's a new experience. It's also COVID-19 actually, getting me to be on the digital sphere more and more actually,
and the same can be said for the church, right? As in we're seeing
one of the most difficult decisions I had to take. I mean, with Bishop Mario Grech and Bishop Joe Galakurmi was to do the right thing. I'm convinced about that, and ask our priests not to celebrate masses and to close churches when there are liturgies, because we couldn't place a risk for our communities. And most of the people we have weekdays especially are people over 65, those who received a letter from our health authorities. And it is very difficult to come to that decision. But I think that the more important aspect of our ministry now is to follow what we are given and what we are told by our health authorities, and to set an example. Churches are not closed, but we can't actually bring people together and expose people to risk.
How has that affected the church? So we know young couples are not being able to get married. We know funerals are being done in a very scaled down way. And we also know, I'm sure that the lack of presence in churches has affected donations to the church as well. So how are you handling these challenges?
Well, I think, let's start with the last thing. I mean, it's a challenge for everybody, not only for the church. So I think it's only legitimate to be on the same page with so many people who have to go with 800 euros per month or even less, because the jobs and people who are self-employed have no jobs. Like I think so often of people who are in the tourism industry and restaurants. So it's not only us who are we are feeling the pinch of all this, but we're not alone, and we are one big family being affected by all this. You mentioned funerals. One of the things that hurt me most is the fact that when we as a community are called to give our last respect to one of us, we're almost hindered from doing it, because the funerals now are only limited to very, very strict number of people, not even more than 5 in cemeteries. Our priests have to do prayers before burial, and that's it. I and Bishop Joe and Bishop Mario, who say Mass every day, are also offering Masses for people who die in the last hours, because we feel that at least we as bishop need to offer this service of Masses for the repose of our brothers and sisters who die, and also bring this important presence of our prayer when we cannot do it in another way. Where we have baptisms, confirmations, holy communions scheduled for 2020, we really don't know where we are. And I also had, my brother bishops, had to decide that we were not going to have festas for the whole season, because we really don't know when the authorities are going to be able to tell us, listen, you can be in a crowd and be secure. I think we will have to wait for vaccinations in order to be real secure, because they're talking about the second wave as well. And we can't.
Are you concerned that, or are you hopeful at least that we will be able to celebrate Christmas as we usually do, or is that still?
I don't know. Let's hope so. I actually had wagered a bit with the Lord, saying that if we can actually do a pilgrimage by the 14th of September, we'll do a national pilgrimage with the crucifix of Tagiso in Valletta, which is such a devout image of our Lord crucified. But I don't know whether we'll get there. And let's hope, fingers crossed, that we get to Christmas. But they're talking about a vaccine, Chris, either for December or even spring next year. So we really don't know. Let's pray for the people in science who are doing a wonderful job, and we need their service.
Interesting that you mentioned that. Obviously, this is a scientific battle first and foremost.
Absolutely.
But you made a wager with the Lord. What role does prayer have in this fight? And also specifically, you had the Via Crucis, the Way of the Cross, broadcast on TV stations and online. What did you pray for over there?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to pray for sanity, because this is something that nobody planned, nobody was prepared for, and we need to keep our calm and our sense of purpose. But it's not easy. And people who have mental health issues are being frustrated more and more, but it's all of us who are affected. I think prayer is important because then you realize that you are not in control. And part of prayer is to say, Lord, this is beyond me, and I need your help. We may actually have brought it, there are reports saying that this may have jumped from animals to humans because of human negligence or the human invasion of the natural environment. So there is a responsibility here which we need to bring to prayer as well. Mm-hmm. When they say, Lord, you invited us to cooperate with creation, not to harm creation. And so prayer also brings us into the awareness of our responsibilities, but also of the responsibility to take care of each other.
You recently met the Prime Minister and his wife as well. What did you talk about over there?
We talked about lots of things. As you know, when bishops talk to people privately, they keep it privately and they keep it private. But we talked about the pandemic, and we talked about issues that concern church and state. It was a very familiar and very cordial meeting, and I would like to thank the Prime Minister for inviting me for an Easter blessing at Castile. But our dialogue will remain private, as it should be.
What about the migration situation? I know, Malta is facing almost an impossible task over here, where international obligations, are there to sort of make sure that Malta rescues people at sea, but a lot of countries have closed their borders, and Malta feels quite alone in this. You begged the government to save lives at sea, but as we heard last week, at least 5, probably 12 migrants were left out stranded and died. How do you reconcile this situation, and what is your advice?
Well, my advice is very clear, that we cannot not save people who are in distress in our area of competence. We have this great responsibility in the Central Mediterranean, which is our safe rescue area, and the SAR zone, and we are responsible for helping people, coordinating the safety of people who are in distress. That's an international obligation. We cannot forget that, and we should live to that expectation. But at the same time, we bishops also ask the Holy See to help, with the network of representatives it has in Europe, to help governments understand that we cannot do it on our own, especially when it comes to the choice of the port of safety, because we understand that we have the responsibility as a country to save people in distress in our SAR zone, but what happens then? What do you do after you save people? If there are no ports of safety, if Italy has closed its ports and the nearest port is Lampedusa, what do you do? do you bring them here? It is a dilemma which we have to face. But when it comes to people in distress, we need to do the right thing.
Okay. You mentioned the economic situation. I'm curious as to whether the church, like everyone else, has asked the government for any assistance in these times, and whether the church will play any role in terms of the economic recovery. Do you see the church, for example, opening up more for the homeless or for people who end up in great difficulty?
Yeah. Well, I don't think that we are going to jump the queue when we ask the state to help us, because we know that there are people who are at a worse place than we are. And I think that we should, in this queue, we should actually, make other people, go before us. And I think that is very important. It is very important for the church to see that families have, the essentials. Other things can wait. I think that we have a duty to respond to poverty where it is, and we'll use, as we have always done, we'll use all our resources to reply to situations as they arise. And we are also blessed that we have the cooperation of lots of people of goodwill, including people who have been in commerce, they don't have work now, but they are using their skills to help people. And I must say that even government is supportive of local initiatives by parish priests who are also helping people in need. And I think that's a very important message. We're in it together, and we need to get out of it together. And so the church will be there wherever it needs, and wherever we see that we need to be.
Thank you very, very much. Your Excellency, it's 11 o'clock. I know you need to rush off to
yeah, the students are waiting for the next lecture, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you for telling me it's 11. I need to go.
Thank you. I now will bring on former President Mary Louise Coleiro Preca, who, as we know, has been very active as well in the charity sphere even after her presidency. Mary Louise, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us. So I want to start. I heard that you were quite instrumental in the early stages of the COVID situation in Malta, where you were very instrumental in setting up a call with some medical experts and experts in China. Tell us a bit about that experience and how it made you feel, especially.
Well, through the Malta Trust Foundation, the contacts that we have in China, and through our international director, who's also Chinese, we have managed to facilitate a call with Professor Wang, who was and is still in charge of the strategy and also the implementation of the strategy within Wuhan and also across China. So we facilitated this sort of teleconference with all our Maltese experts, including Professor Chris Barbara from public health, Professor Neville Kallea, Professor Charles Malia Sopardi, and well, there were quite a number of them, about 10, I think.
Did it frighten you? Did the situation in China at the time frighten you for what was to come in Malta?
Well, we were following, obviously, from international media. However, then this was not anything to do with sort of frightening people, but more of advising, or rather sharing the experience. And it was very important because our experts could ask and also question. And this was really at the very early stages. We hadn't at that time, not even one COVID positive in Malta. So there was ample time to sort of absorb what was actually being done in the core of the strategy in China, and also the implementation phase. I think it was beneficial because it's very important. I mean, China was the very first country to have experienced this horrendous virus, this deadly virus, and also had gone through a process already. So at that point in time, it was quite eye-opening, I would say.
You are you have always been very close to the vulnerable people in society, and always trying to, even after your presidency, you've remained extremely active in charitable initiatives. I'll ask you about the specific charitable initiatives in a second, but first I want to get a sense of whether you think COVID-19 and the economic hit has exposed a different kind of poverty in Malta that maybe we weren't so sure of.
I would say there are two sort of elements. Though the vulnerable people before COVID, obviously, the situation has compounded their vulnerability. And therefore, people on social benefits, for example, people with minimum pensions, who were already at, one could say, at risk of poverty, obviously, this situation has compounded their vulnerability. But then there are people who, unfortunately, have become vulnerable due to COVID. The fact that, for example, we've been hearing a lot of, one could say, situations from directly from people requesting the assistance with food and all that, and we have had a multitude of situations, particular situations. For example, single parent families, especially where jobs were lost, have become extremely vulnerable. Then we have also young families who, both adults, for example, at home, were working, but due to COVID, they lost their jobs and had home loans and other loans because they're obviously at the start of their family life. These people are in dire situations.
So what is your appeal to political leaders in such situations?
I am very afraid of the issue of child poverty within such situations. Child poverty will impact definitely the future generation. And child poverty, I'm not speaking of child poverty only in the case of material deprivation, but material deprivation will impact also, for example, their education. So it was a very good stand from government from the Ministry of Education to start actually giving hardware and also internet access to those families who had not the proper facilities, technological facilities for the children to follow their schoolwork, which is now being given online. But there are more issues to that, because obviously there is not the academic background for example, parents to support their children. So getting schoolwork over online, and that those children are in a difficult situation. Then also we have the problem of lack of parents' agency with regards to the education of some of our children. So there is a very pardon.
What does that mean? Lack of parents' agency.
I mean, not enough awareness of the need that they can continue that their children must continue with their studies, even from home at this point in time. Therefore, we have a diverse spectrum here of situations where children, not only material deprivation, but also the issue of lack of facilities, for example, at home. They could also be living in substandard housing where the family is crammed in a small space, etc. It's very difficult to concentrate. Even that can affect heavily on the situation of children. Therefore, child poverty is one of my big concerns now.
Okay. So I want to ask you a bit about some of the projects that you've been involved in. First of all, the sort of food aid program, right? What are you doing exactly over there?
Yes, the Food Aid Project, which is run by the Malta Trust Foundation, is in collaboration with a great number of organizations like Caritas, Malta, and Gozo, St. John Antide, Millennium Chapel, Richmond Foundation, Food Bank Lifeline Foundation, JRS, YMCA, Little Sisters of the Poor, Mental Health Network, local councils, and even the parishes. So there's a whole collaboration. And this is one of the things which are very positive at this very critical time in our lives. Collaboration is always key in any circumstance. However, it's even more important when we are in crisis.
But
so
you are
really
delivering meals. You are delivering meals to people in need.
no,
What's the
meals are being delivered by Caritas Malta. We are being referred to by the organizations and also direct requests from people out there for groceries and foodstuffs. So what we are doing in 3 weeks, now we're reaching the 1,000 families, which that equates to well over 3,000 individuals. We have established like a food depot where there are deliveries of foodstuffs. Then there is this. All this is run by volunteers, and volunteers are putting food packs for families, and there are particular food packs because if there is a family of 2, you have to supply with certain amount of 4 or 6 or 8. We have also families of 10. We have come across even families of 10. So, and then there are other volunteers who come and pick up those packs and deliver to the doorsteps, of these households.
So if companies or individuals, maybe restaurants, maybe supermarket owners, if people want to get involved, what kind of help, what kind of assistance do you need?
Yes, we're accepting both monetary donations to buy food and also foodstuffs themselves. For example, the people at the vegetable market in the Pitkali at Taali, they regularly give us 2 consignments of vegetables on a Tuesday, on a Friday, so that we will not just give food, preserves and pasta and rice, but also vegetables, some healthy food. We are thanks to the vegetable vendors there, we can supply some of that as well. But then we have corporates who have supplied us with foodstuffs, and they're still supplying us with foodstuffs. But also we have quite a number of members of the business community who are giving monetary donations, something which is wonderful. The beauty of, well, the silver lining in the cloud, in the dark cloud, Chris, one could say, is that also families who have not been affected financially in this situation are phoning us up and telling us, listen, what do you need? We are going for our weekly shopping. Please tell us so that we can donate some foodstuffs while we're shopping for our own families.
And
so there are
get in touch, so they can get in touch with whom to help.
Yes, we have 2 lines telephone lines that we're taking in telephone calls from. That is requests. It's 21484-662, and then there is another emergency line. It's 21491-550. But then we are taking requests also from our Facebook pages within the foundations, and also referred directly through organizations. So this is the way that requests are being handled.
Okay, I'm putting the numbers on screen so that if anyone's watching and wants to get it.
There are also a number of pledge lines, which we call pledge lines, which are being used over social media, whereby people can donate money like €2, €5, and €10. And there is also an IBAN number, which is public, so that anybody who would like to give more than that €10, obviously, can do it directly through the bank. But also we are having people phoning us and telling us, listen, I would like to donate through a check, and we collect that check.
Tomorrow is World Book Day, and I believe you've also got an initiative to help children continue reading, right? What's that initiative about?
This is the Malta Foundation for the Wellbeing of Society in collaboration with and partnership with the National Literacy Agency. And what we're going to do is taking Little Stars Library, which was already there, to the community. So in Maltese it translates Libreria Stellini fil Comunità. So what we're going to do tomorrow, we'll be launching this initiative, whereby we will be taking books to the doorstep, not just the groceries, but also the books. So we are inviting children, their parents, obviously, to tell us if they would like books, and then we will deliver those books. Also, this is an opportunity for those who are already benefiting from groceries, where we can, and we have a lot of families with children, where together with those groceries, also we can provide the books. But it's not just giving children books. We will be asking children to tell us what impressed them in that particular book that they have read, and they can write like a sentence, a paragraph, a whole essay if they like, and will be publishing those writings from children about the books that they will read. We have also a plan for after all this, we overcome all this situation. But we will obviously publish that later on.
Okay, I think that's really nice, especially because parents who, as you mentioned, not every parent is necessarily well equipped to help their child's education from home, right? And this sort of adds another level that they could get some assistance with. I want to also talk about mental health. I know that is an issue very close to your heart. I know that that's an issue which is putting a lot of strain on people right now with the measures that are in place to combat the virus. Are you doing any work over there to help people
Yes.
who are suffering from mental health issues?
Yes, together with or rather collaboration with Richmond Foundation, we have a project through the Malta Trust Foundation, which is a community level mental health community service for young people in Gozo, and we are continuing with that service over telephone or online. It would depend on the young person, the way that we would like to communicate with our social worker in Gozo. But also we had planned together with a number of student organizations at university, ITS, SEMCAS, higher secondary and junior college, with regards to mental health first aid courses to students. And we are going to continue that project by going online. So now more than ever, Chris, we need to think of our mental health. And there have been people, unfortunately, who have been very badly affected. I think everybody, in one way or another, is quite affected with the fact that we're staying at home most of the time and all that, and our children are stuck in our houses doing doing homework and doing quite a lot of things, because we have had quite through our children's council, for example, which this children's council is meeting every day together with our coordinators from the children's hub. We know quite a lot what is happening in the homes, and our children from the council are bringing in their friends too. So it's not simply like a number, just a small number of children, but it's growing and it's growing. In fact, very soon we'll be launching also a Facebook page, which we're calling Here For You, for children to also share their experience with others.
I think one of the issues we need to reconcile is that this may be a reality for longer than we think, not just in terms of the measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19, but also the economic repercussions of that are going to follow, right? As in, I think I think that's going to take a while to bounce back. We're hearing some positive things about how Malta's economy, but we do know that there were people who were vulnerable before, and now there will be more vulnerable people. And also maybe whereas before we were building an economy which basically could never have enough people, the more people the merrier. Now we're going to be in a position where it's going to be a bit harder to provide for all. How important is it for us to find our humanity in these situations and to organize for the long term as well for everyone in our society?
Chris, I never look at the economy on its own. The economy is there for the people and not the people for the economy. So I think we need to work in parallel to ensure that no one is left behind in such a crisis. obviously, after all this, when we overcome all this, the world will not be the same. The world economic order will be different. But I have great hope in our country, as well. We have seen through history that we have always not just survived but also surmounted. And we have resilience, we have an inbuilt resilience, but we were also very innovative and very creative. I mean, since our forefathers and foremothers, we have always been just a rock, but we have managed to make a living for ourselves, and a good one at that. I'm not saying we have always had those pockets of people who have been vulnerable, and we must never forget those and think because we are okay, everybody is okay. But we need to continue to have solidarity and a good welfare system where we can give that helping hand to such people. But on the long term, I would say that as soon as all this is over and the world is calmer, to start thinking again of certain aspects of things. I wouldn't say we have to wait until that time, but we need to start thinking and planning for what is next, so that we can start being creative and innovative and think of other ways of how we can build our economy again. And each and every one of us will have to contribute at that time to really get on our feet again.
And it's interesting that you mentioned innovation and creativity. I think what's quite fascinating to see as well is how people all over the world, but even in Malta, have adapted to the situation and even found the silver linings. What positive lessons? And we'll conclude here. But I want to know what positive lessons have you learned, maybe personally, or have you seen in the world that we can sort of continue to take on after the emergency sort of passes, you know?
Definitely. I think people of my generation have become more savvy with technology. I must say that it was a learning curve for me because I'm using all sorts of technological facilities so that I can continue to work and continue to communicate with meetings.
Probably working harder than ever, right?
We're working even more. I have always worked for long hours. However, now I feel that I am working longer. It's exhausting standing before a screen, or rather sitting in front of a screen all day and speaking. It's very exhausting. However, we are managing in the circumstances. So that is, I think, it is an experience that I can share with many people. But then I am so overwhelmed in a most positive way with collaboration. There are so many organizations working together, reaching out to each other, acknowledging the strengths that we have, and really joining hands to help people out there who are in distress and who need a helping hand. There is something else which definitely to me is very pleasing. It's the environment. The way air quality has improved so drastically. Last week, there was this report also with regards to traffic from the University of Malta, how less traffic on our roads even impacted our seismological movements. But also, I think we must learn also a lesson from this. Agriculture in this country, it has always been, for some reason, sidelined. But we know now also that agriculture is so very important that it is an important strategic asset, because we're an island and in such crisis where many countries have also have been thinking of closing their borders also for exports, etc. I could see this with regards to the for example, the protective masks all over the world. This could happen also with regards to food. So agriculture, I think, should also take more importance in the years to come. I think also there's an issue of going down to our roots again and thinking more of values, of what is valuable in life, and not, skimming over the surface and being very cosmetic. I think we are, for example, look at my new look. I decided not to dye my hair, because I wanted to give a message out there. That is not important. What is important are substance, our contribution within the family, within our community, to our society. So I urge everybody to look, to reflect, and see what he and she can do better, not only for oneself, which is important, or the family, but also for our communities and our society out there. And I think if we learn this lesson and really work after this crisis in this manner, will be such a wonderful, beautiful community, such a beautiful society.
Thank you very, very much for those beautiful words and all the work that you're doing with all your volunteers as well. That's it from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
So I just want to thank our two guests today, two very high-profile guests. We had the Archbishop of Malta, Charles Scicluna, who was in between online lectures, and he spoke to us about the challenges the church is facing, but also some of the opportunities in terms of going online and reaching more people online. And also he spoke about his wager with the Lord to try and in the hope that things will be settled by September. We'll see about that. And we also had former President Louise Preca, who, as we know, has continued a lot of activism in her work, a lot of charity work and initiatives, but also had some important messages for us about how we need to sort of reflect in these times to help those around us and to play our role in helping our societies. So I hope that was a nice way to start your mornings, and we'll be with you again tomorrow on COVID Calls. I've been Chris Peregin, your host, and thanks again for watching.